With Dokkan Battle being almost 9 years old, it is safe to say that we have seen a lot of characters, better known as units, throughout the lifespan of the game. In today's video, I want to take a trip down memory lane and discuss some of my favorite units to release and what made those specific releases the ones that I enjoyed the most. Remember as we go throughout this list that this is just my opinion, and the performance of the unit in the most difficult content in the game at that time is not the only metric that I will be using to evaluate how much I enjoyed playing with a specific character. Now with all that being said, be sure to like this video if you find yourself enjoying it throughout, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos just like this. With all that being said, let's get into the list. So, opening up our honorable mentions, I have Int, LR, Vegeta, and Trunks. Now, what makes these guys really special to me is just the way that they aged. They are very uncharacteristic in the way that they maintain relevance, a year and change later. We are almost 18 months into their release at this point, and we are still just now starting to kind of see a little bit of a fall off for them. And by a fall off, I mean instead of being in the 1 to 5 range, they are more now down to like the 9 to 15 range, wherever you want to put them. You could argue them being a little bit higher, but still one of the best units in the game a year and a half later, which is very hard to do in today's day and age, which is how power creep moves so quick. I think that is very impressive for how Vegeta and Trunks have aged. I think that their kit made up for a moment that was not very significant in the series. This moment is depicting, if you don't know, the father-son Gallic Gun, which obviously is Trunks and Vegeta doing a Gallic Gun to merge Zamasu, which does a grand total of 0 damage. Zamasu eats it, does whatever he does with it, and it ends up doing nothing to him, and it's just more of a character development moment than it is a moment that, does damage to an enemy. You think about a damaging moment, you think about the Super Spirit Bomb, you think about the Father-Son Kamehameha, but the Father-Son Gallic Gun was just kind of like, oh, hey, Trunks, look, I'm working with you now, and Zamasu's like, all right, that's cool, next. The kit made up for this not being the most exciting thing in the world, and, this unit being as good as it was made up for that. And the leader skill of this unit, godlike. The Bond of Parent and Child team along with Future Saga. The Bond of Parent and Child team is one that basically covered all of the Vegeta family and Goku family units and stuff like that, and it encompassed 2 of the better rosters in the game and put them onto one team, and that helped out a lot with kind of giving you versatility when it came to teams. You could do more of a Goku family setup that was oriented around it, or you could do a Vegeta family one, or you could do like a hybrid Saiyan version of it, a pure Saiyan version of it. It all kind of worked out, right? And the Bond of Parent and Child team is still one of the best teams in the game to this day. What really made them fun to me was just the ability to take them everywhere and anywhere and just see them tank anything that was thrown their way, right? I believe the hardest event in the game that came when these guys came out was the Cell Max event, and they went in there and made Cell Max kind of look stupid, right? Like a slot 1 tank that just isn't taking any damage whatsoever really made things very easy for them, and it helped. They also helped out the rotation with their active skill, which gave defensive support. So Vegeta and Trunks are my first honorable mention. Insanely good unit that has aged extremely well, and that's what made them extremely special to me. Moving on to our second honorable mention, I have STR Videl. Now, STR Videl is a very funny and polarizing unit, and that's why I kind of like this release, just because it was a significant moment in that time of just kind of like the, we really are just trying anything at this point. And so, STR Videl. The shock around how good this unit was really funny, right? It's just like, is this real? Like, what am I looking at? Like, the moment that they chose for a Dokkan Fest exclusive unit in this game in 2021 was Videl asking Gohan if he liked girls with short hair. And that was worthy of a Dokkan Fest to them. When we didn't have, some of the most significant moments in all of Dragon Ball still didn't have a Dokkan Fest, Videl asking about short hair was a Dokkan Fest. So, what was also cool about her was she ended up performing very well in the App Store. On the Japanese version in specific, I believe she finished 6th on the top grossing charts. Top grossing is very important as a metric to see like how successful the game is being, and you're finishing in that top 10 range, you know that the game is successful. And with the sales around Videl, as well as how good she was, she ended up finishing 6th, which is very impressive considering the character that we are talking about. And this really just kind of proved that Dokkan could get away with almost any release if they made them good. And again, it makes up for a very odd choice for a Dokkan Fest exclusive. You could say that she was far from deserving of one. We talked about this, and it kind of just felt like a big joke. And to me, that joke was kind of like, it almost felt comedic, and that's what made this one special to me. So coming in at 3 on the honorable mentions list, this will be the last honorable mention. This one I hate to say because it should be like a top 5 on the overall list. This is Physical Ultimate Gohan from Dragon Ball Super Superhero, right? This one, like I said, should be in the top 5 if something wasn't missing from this unit. So in case any of you are unfamiliar with this specific release, this character was, like I said, the Dragon Ball Superhero adaptation of Gohan, and was missing a transformed state into the Beast form, which is what made this unit sought after before it dropped. Now, despite missing Beast, he is still very solid and has early game utility, which is some of the most important utility in the game, considering the hard content, especially now, is very heavily focused on just taking a ton of damage at the beginning, and the units are just hitting super hard. You don't have a lot of time to build up. So what made this Gohan have that utility is the ability that he had, the ability to nullify blast-based enemy super attacks, and has the very polarizing, like I said earlier with Videl, but useful guard mechanic that makes him defensively viable in the beginning of fights. Now, like I said, the beginning of the fight is the most important because this is when your units are not built up, so that is when you need them to be able to tank at their best. And what makes this unit extremely, extremely special, but just not in the top 10, is I think, in my opinion, he has objectively, maybe not even objectively speaking, but to me, the best animation in the game, that being his Beast Special Beam Cannon, the Makan Kosopo, whatever you want to call it, right? That animation is just beautiful. It's almost one-to-one from the movie, and overall, if we're not going to have the transform state, at least they're going to give us the best animation in the game that came with this unit. So, Beast Gohan, Beastless Gohan, Ultimate Gohan is going to round out our honorable mentions. Now let's go ahead and hop into the top 10. So at number 10, I have LR Int Namek Goku. So, Int Namek Goku, after nearly 7 years of the game being out in August of 2021, the worldwide download celebration, I believe this was the 350 million download celebration at that time, we had the best fight in all of Dragon Ball, which changed the anime landscape as we know it with the Super Saiyan form, finally had the proper representation that it deserved in Dokkan. He had amazing animations and what is known as a win screen, in which a special animation plays when the enemy that you are fighting is KO'd, and you move on to the next portion of the fight, you end the fight, you know, we just call it a KO screen. The iconic You Fool or Bakayaro plays with an amazing OST as an active skill, awesome to see even though it is hard to get. Seeing how high you could stack his defense and running him alongside Cell Games LR AGL Gohan was a lot of fun. You could see them get better and better at longer events, which at the time was the majority of content being dropped in the game. All in all, I think the hype was there, the kit was there, the moment was peak Dragon Ball, and it was a great release, and he cracks the top 10 for me. So, moving on to number 9, I have Tech LR Gogeta. Now, Tech LR Gogeta is one of those units that is solely carried by just how hyped the release was. You could tell by the design of the kit that they made them around the same time that STR Vegito, the counterpart to them, was made at the same time, right? And this would not be a problem usually, but the issue was they were not released at the same time. Gogeta came out about 10 months later, so we had seen a shift in power creep, different events had come out, so this power creep was not in the favor of Gogeta, unfortunately. It was more towards the Vegito portion of those two, right? Because these two easily could have been like a dual Dokkan Fest, but like I said, they came out 10 months apart. So, with all that being said, this unit had top-notch animations at the time, and it was awesome fusing into Gogeta and just kind of running rampant on whatever boss is in your way, nullifying strike-based supers and stuff like that. Super cool. Just seeing that animation and whatnot. And despite them not being the #1 unit in the game when they came out, this did still feel like a must-have character at the time. And I'm sure, as most of you are also, I am a sucker for fusions, and this release was still dope either way. So, Tech Gogeta, let's move to number 8, which is Int Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. This is going to be one of the few times a unit on this list is not a major celebration headliner. This was just a regular Dokkan Fest TUR that came out in October of 2020. He has one of the most satisfying gimmicks in the game, which is a counter attack when the enemy does a super. So instead of taking damage from a super attack, which tends to be a death blow in a lot of content, especially these days, what you see is a little frame drop, and then that means you know that you are going to be getting the counter animation, and then you get your own animation to go ahead and deal damage back to the enemy instead of you taking a death blow, and that is super satisfying to see. You have high damage numbers, you're effective against all types, you had high defense for the time, and fun teams to be ran on. You have like fusions, you have GT. I don't believe GT Heroes was a category that was around at the time, but kind of any team that you could set him up on, right? Like Shadow Dragon Saga, and then especially like down the line, right? You had like the GT Heroes team, you had the Power Beyond Super Saiyan team, you had the Fused Fighters team. Just a lot of different teams. Grade 8 Power, I don't think I mentioned that one. That was another one you could run him on. It was just a lot of fun, right? And this is still one of the most hyped characters that Dragon Ball has to offer either way. And just really, all in all, he was just kind of a Giga Chad, and that was what made him a lot of fun to use. So, number 8 in Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Love that unit. Actually ended up getting him first multi, so that also does help. So there you go, 8 Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Now, at number 7, I have STR UI Goku. Now, UI Goku is my favorite form of Goku in the game. More on that later, but Global First is the first thing that I want to talk about with this guy. Most of the time, if you guys are unfamiliar with the Dokkan cycle, up until they decide to sync the game, which we know will happen in the coming years maybe, we do know most releases do come out on the Japanese version first, and this is one of the rare cases where the international or global version got the unit first. This guy had crazy good animations for 2020. It was super fun to kind of just bob and weave the enemy with dodging, and his he had a 70% chance to dodge, and also he built up his attack and defense, and also got ki every time he dodged up into, I believe it was 77%. So very fun unit to use. He can be used in long content, he can be used in short content, because you're always going to have that dodge chance unless the enemy specifically disables the evade action, which is not often. Not many fights do that. So this was the beginning of a good stretch for the Universe 7 or Universal Survival Saga category, which is one of my favorite teams to run in the game, even though it is not very good these days. The hype was there big time, and especially on global, people were using stones that they had saved up for the 5th anniversary that was upcoming to summon for this UI Goku, and that is kind of the power of a global first and what makes a unit special. I'm a JP player, so my perspective on it is a little bit different because I was able to summon for this guy at a different time, but I did actually end up getting him on a single on JP, and that was kind of what leaned me over towards playing JP over global at that time. So number 6, this is the one time I'm going to do this on the list, and I'm going to include a release that I was not present for. And this is the second year TURs, the AGL Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta and the STR Super Saiyan 4 Goku. And like I said, the first point I have here is this one was tricky as I was not playing at the time, but it did something special in terms of hype, so I just wanted to kind of give them a shout. They just straight up broke global at the time, and servers were shot. We're talking about not being able to summon, just kind of stuck loading, doing a multi and then just having to wait, the game crashing, not being able to load anything. It was just crazy how hyped these guys were, right? And it was a long time. Like they like I said, they just straight up broke the game, which is something that does not happen often these days. You need a crazy amount of hype, you need a crazy amount of returning players, and the servers are even better now. So it's like, just crazy to think that the impact that these guys had for the game at the time, especially in the second year when the community was nowhere near as big. It was just wild to see. So Super Saiyan 4 is one of the most hyped forms, like I said earlier, with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. They could do even to this day, which is amazing considering the reputation that GT has garnered, where it's like everybody loves Super Saiyan 4, but everybody hates GT. So it is one of those weird things. Shout out to you if you were a GT defender, a GT supporter. Just calling it how I see it, the second year TURs, they broke the game, so they do deserve a spot on the favorite releases list just because of how unique that is. So coming in at number 5, this is going to be kind of the first character that we have looked at that is not a world beater in terms of hype. We've been looking at Gogeta, we've been looking at Super Saiyan 4s, we've been looking at UI. This one is going to be a little unorthodox, and that is AGL Captain Ginyu. Now, he is up at 5 just because of the kind of blueprint that he laid out for the game, and I think this was super important because it gave the game, or especially like the devs and stuff like that, a kind of an idea on how you can make a team go from a 0 to a hero in essentially one night. And this one might come as a surprise, but like I said, I love the way they handled the makeover of the Captain Ginyu's Ginyu Force team. They went from free-to-play units to an absolute god squad that made everything in its path look easy. Global players were able to use the Ginyu Force team for the Ultimate Red Zone, and I believe it was able to clear every stage, where JP did not have this, and you were kind of, pivoted into this, you need the 7-year anniversary LR, so this is going to be very tricky. Global just had, you can just use the Ginyu Force team, and you're good to go, right? So it just goes to show you how good that they made this team, right? And when you are given a very limited amount of characters in a category like this, when there's only 5 named characters in the Ginyu Force, this is the blueprint for how you make the team viable basically overnight, like I said before. It doesn't need to be a slow burn with releases over months and years, and this guy proved it with the banner units that came out with him. Like I said, went from a 0 to a hero in one night. So coming in at number 4, this is going back to kind of the more routine picks here. I have STR Super Vegito. Now, this guy was the best unit in the game when he came out. And despite it not working in the modern day, there's something so much fun about just doing an absolutely insane amount of damage to the boss. And this is what Vegito does. He has crit counters that are doing 2.5 million damage apiece. And imagine when you get hit like 7 times in a fight and you're doing, almost 3 million per counter, you just know that the APT, kind of a cringe term, but the attack per turn, the numbers of damage that you're doing to the enemy is just wild, especially for the time when he came out. He is one of the best OSTs in the game, even to this day, even though he is over 3 years old at this point. He is a fun defensive kit that turns into offense after fusing, so you get the best of both worlds, and you can also choose to fuse if you need to. He was a super hype release. We're talking Super Vegito is one of the head honchos in terms of making them money. I don't know if he's number 1, maybe over in Japan he is, but I can only speak mostly for the West because that is the community that I interact with. But he does print money, and loads of people come back for a Super Vegito release, and that is kind of what makes him fun. And then he also has a mechanic that is a scouter. So if you guys don't know what the scouter mechanic is, it is the ability to see the attack that is the attack or attacks that are going to be super attacks where the enemy is. So say this Vegito, what was his biggest knock, especially at the time when he came out, was taking super attacks was not good for him because he just took a lot of damage, right? So if you could hide him and not let him take a super because you knew exactly where to put it, you could kill app even if you knew where the super attack is. You could close out of the app, go back in, you know exactly where the super is going to be, and you can either stay unfused, or you could fuse again and just put the unit that is defensive in the spot where the super attack is going to be. So a lot of broken mechanics, super hype release. OST isn't something really I've talked about much in this video, but when it is that good, it does kind of count for something. So that's why I have him at number 4. So number 3, excuse me, is the 5-year anniversary. Now, to me, I think when it comes to just hype, this is probably the peak of it. Blue Vegito and Blue Gogeta from the Broly movie and from the Fusion Zamasu fight at the same time. We are talking hype, we're talking top grossing, we're talking about all these people returning. It is just a great time for the game, and these guys were crazy when they came out. Now, granted, they didn't age the best, just kind of the way that the game worked, but they did have a lot of utility and a lot of damage that you could get out of them. And especially, you know, this doesn't really count too much towards the release, but their Easy A turned them into, you know, top 5, top 6 units in the game when they did eventually get their Easy A this year. But both these guys had very, very similar kits, and that was kind of what was fun about them, right? I like when the game kind of gives you two units that are very similar in stature, and then they give you the choice of like, which one do you want, right? It's like Gogeta is going to perform very similar to Vegito. Do you prefer Gogeta? Do you prefer Vegito? Summon for the one that you want. Obviously, in an ideal world, you get them both, but if you have to pick one, just pick the more hype one for you. And I think this is kind of like one of those cases where there isn't like a clear-cut favorite, right? You look at something like the 6-year anniversary, most people are going to be summoning for UI Goku. You look at the 8-year anniversary, most people with kits excluded, are going to go for the Buu Saga Spirit Bomb over the GT Spirit Bomb, right? It's just inherently how they do it. But with the 5-year, I like how they kind of give you a pick and choose option where it's like, you like Gogeta more, go for Gogeta, because Vegito is very similar, but they are just kind of minuscule differences between the kits. But overall, they basically have the same skeleton in both base form as well as blue. So 5-year, this is also one of those ones where it's just hype. This one's actually super special to me because this is when I started really getting into the game back in 2020 during the 5-year. So a little bit on the later side of when I got started, but I've tried to make up for that with a lot of grinding and stuff like that over the last few years. So hopefully I've been able to do that for you guys. But 5-year fusions, some of the most fun that I've ever had with the game, and that is why they're in at number 3. Excuse me. So number 2. The 7-year anniversary, both of those units in specific. I prefer the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta portion, but this again is very similar to the core principle that we talked about with the 5-year units, where do you prefer Super Saiyan 4s? Do you prefer Super Saiyan Gods? They are very, almost identical in base. I think they are identical in base except for like one thing. And then when you transform, Gogeta gets damage reduction on Rainbow Orbs, and then the Blue Boys, they get dodge on Rainbow Orbs. So again, very similar units. Pick the one you think you're going to use. Now, the Gods age better just because of the situation that they were in and their links. But again, very similar units, and the hype was there, right? I remember specifically being in the 5-9 gaming stream at that time, like being part of that stream when we were, you know, watching the reveal and reacting to it at that time, with seeing all the animations and stuff like that. And then we had like 10,000 people in that stream watching, and it was just a really, really exciting time just for everybody involved. Just a special anniversary, and the introduction of the 200% leader skill, which is something incredible to watch and see unfold. It should also be worth noting that they introduced the 200% leader skill, which is something that is still very viable to this day with all releases. Almost every new major release, especially Dokkan Fest, get this 200%. Even Carnival units just get straight up 200%, not even a 30% buff. And they just make things really fun for the game. So 7-year, hype is there, kits are there, everything, animations are great, OSTs are great, you know, voice acting, everything you want to say. Love these units, a great time, but they were not number 1 for me. Now, coming in at number 1 for me, I'm sure if you guys have been around my channel, you know who my favorite character in Dragon Ball is, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to any of you that are new around here that AGL Ultra Instinct Goku is my favorite release of all time. This guy is one of those units where it's almost hard to put into words, right? I got shafted extremely bad on his banner. It took about over 2,000 stones to even get my first copy of him, but that still did not take away just from the pure enjoyment factor that I had with using my favorite character in the game, having that dodge chance, a 70% chance to dodge, having the revival animation, having the cool active skill, having the 18 key and 12 key be super good, and having him be the best unit in the game for a whole year. Because in my opinion, full power Frieza was really his only competition, and I don't think he was ever better than AGL UI Goku. So what made this guy extremely special too was the fact that at 55%, you were still getting most of the skeleton that made him viable even at the rainbow level, right? You just put additional equips on him, and then he was able to triple super. He has that 50% chance to crit on the first super, and then has guaranteed additionals, or the guaranteed crit on his additionals, so you get potentially a triple super, triple crit, which is not hard, which isn't like the rarest thing in the world, and you do have that 70% chance to dodge. If you do get hit a couple times, especially back then when it wasn't an absolute death blow to take normals with this guy, you'd be able to get that revive animation in and get a second chance at the game, which is the mechanic him and that Vegeta brought to the game. And really, all in all, just super fun to use. And again, this one is extremely biased because for me, it was the most hype release for me. Really just anticipating this was like my first time going into an anniversary celebration, like knowing the anniversary was coming, knowing the format of the game, because this had been my first year really being in the game serious and stuff like that. Right before I did, about a couple months out before I started doing YouTube, in fact. So AGL Ultra Instinct Goku really helped me during the 6th anniversary to continue playing this game super serious, and all in all, that is why he is my favorite release in the game. So let me know what you guys think of this list down below. Just to kind of quickly go over it really quickly, at the honorable mentions we had Vegeta and Trunks, STR Videl, and then the physical Ultimate Gohan from Dragon Ball Super Superhero. And then at the top 10 we had Int LR Namek Goku, Tech LR Gogeta, 8 Super Saiyan 4 Int Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. 7, we had STR UI Goku. 6, we had the 2nd year anniversary TURs. At number 5, we had AGL Captain Ginyu. At number 4, we had STR Super Vegito. At number 3, we kind of bunched them together. We had the 5-year fusions. At number 2, we had the 7-year LRs. And then at number 1, we had AGL Ultra Instinct Goku, my favorite unit in the game. So, like I said earlier in the video, if you have not already, don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this in the future, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any of the Dokkan content that I post. Thank you guys for watching. It's been a pleasure making this list and hosting it for you, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.